the biggest questions out there is it possible to change culture? And if so, how?
You have really strong opinions on culture, Randall.
I have strong views
Strong
on culture.
views, okay.
Yeah. I like Peter Drucker's point on this, is that you can't change culture, but you can get cultural change.
Wait a minute. Isn't that semantics? You can do cultural change, but you can't change culture.
It's Peter Drucker. I wouldn't accuse him of semantics. No, what we're talking about is you can't take somebody else's perspective, whether it's the chief executives or some consultant's view about what culture should be, and plant it down on an existing culture and say that's the way we're going to be. It just doesn't work.
Look, I agree. There are many organisations who have traded on the idea that there is a right culture. And in fact, there are a lot of cultural assessments which go, here's the right culture, we'll score you. And how close you are to that right culture is how good your culture is. I mean, my question's always been, who decided that was the right culture?
Yeah, whose culture are we talking about here? Look, I think one of the most important things is that and to go back to Drucker again, who, by the way, never said you can't change culture, and he never said that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
What did he say? What did he say?
He said, look, culture is something that just is. And if you think about, for example, he used Japan and Germany, which were defeated 70 years ago, that all their cultural institutions, the culture itself was kind of destroyed. But if you look at Germany and Japan today, they are still distinctively Japan and still distinctively German, but with a very different understanding of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point. I think when thinking about culture in an organisation, I mean, the first thing I do is say, don't use the word culture. Yeah. I mean, culture is an embodiment. It's almost a manifestation of behaviours, of values, goals,
yep.
Ways of working. So the best way to get to culture is actually not look at culture. But I like the point thinking around strengths. So what are the
cultural strengths?
Cultural strengths. So what is working well for the company?
Yeah, look at your organisation. I think this is the first thing you have to do, is to say, okay, as an organisation, as a group of people, we want to be distinct. We want to be different to every other organisation, and that distinctiveness is really important to us. And so look at those things that make us distinct. Look at those things that are valued by your people as being really cultural strengths of the organisation, and work with those. And perhaps start to use those as a way of shifting those things that perhaps aren't working well for you.
So would you say that an outsider's point of view of the culture and areas for improvement is actually quite limited because they haven't engaged in the culture themselves?
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good point. Right. Yeah, you need to be within the culture to understand it, which again is the limitation of surveys, cultural surveys. Not to say not to use them, but there's a role. I think if you're wanting to shift culture, the first thing is from the inside understand it.
Yeah.
And the best way to understand it is what is valued. And rather than using the word valued, often I say what is prized. And you can see what is prized, what really matters in an organisation in the way decisions are made. So, if you sit down with executives and there is limited resources, whether it be time, money, people, where they choose to put those available resources will tell you what matters. And I think the very first step is understanding what matters now, which part of that is really useful for the organisation, but which part is getting in the way.
Yeah, I think one of the points you made there is really important, is that you can't change culture from without, you have to change it from within. Yeah. And if you aren't part of the culture, you can't change culture.
Absolutely.